I'll be perfectly honest. I do not think the Dark Souls series deserves the reputation it has. Not the reputation for being a beautiful, refreshing and fun game. It fully deserves that. No, the reputation I'm talking about is the one that in order to play this game with any degree of success, you need to be amazing at video games. The words "get good" are parroted at anyone who admits they struggled with a boss or had a death count higher than an ant's push-up, leaving people to believe the game is either just too hard or populated by elitists. Now, while the latter may be true, it's only a vocal minority. The first, while also being true, is certainly not intended to keep the noobs away, like so many Twitch or YouTube commenters will tell you. It would be a terrible business model to gate the whole game behind such a ridiculous notion. Only the best of the best can play our game. No. That's what bonus content is for. Hidden bosses with 50 million HP, or neat little bonus items stashed at the top of a tower that takes 20 minutes to climb. No. There's no way a company would release an entire game around the concept of best of the best only. Please. The whole idea that Dark Souls is saved for the elite is the notion that death equals bad. Old gamers like myself grew up with games like Oddworld, games that never penalised you for dying. To make up for these infinite lives, the games ramped up the difficulty. They became a genre unto themselves. Trial and error. By throwing yourself repeatedly into the snake pit, you may eventually realise that if you'd rolled and jumped, you would have made it to the other side, only to find there was a ladder you could have pushed over all along. And that was the point! The game was hard, but never impossible. You didn't need to be the best gamer ever. You didn't need to do it without dying once, because that's the way the game was made. You are going to die. But in doing so, you would develop your own style and your own tactics. Dark Souls doesn't hold your hand, it doesn't point out where you need to go. You're free to wander around the beautifully crafted levels, and free to walk off a cliff by accident, or into an area where the enemies can wipe out all your health by farting loudly in your presence. And you learn. Right, I better not go that way, let's try somewhere else. Or, if you're anything like me, what a dick! I'm gonna go back and kill him. Only to spend an hour killing one dude, dying 50 times, and then realising there's half a dozen of the same enemy behind him. And then taking the hint that maybe I'm not just ready for that bit yet. The whole point of this style is to help you work things out on your own. That way, when you finally find the weapon that you like, the playstyle you like, and manage to beat the boss that's been kicking you around like the lonely Christmas Brussels sprout that you are, you actually feel like you've accomplished something. Dark Souls 3 is no different. I streamed the first section of the game a week or so before the English launch. Now, in the older games there is a message system in place. Players could leave little tips for other players, like treasure ahead, or weak to fire, or beware of the fall, to help each other out. You could even touch bloodstains left behind and see how other players died and get a small amount of forewarning. Playing this before release? Give me none of that. As someone who had never completed a Dark Souls game since the first, I'll admit I struggled to find a rhythm. It plays a lot faster than its younger siblings, leaning heavily on the advances made in Bloodborne. At lower levels, it's a lot easier to roll around like a dog in a cowfield than to use your shield and effectively block and stab. But that's soon equalised. For every enemy you kill, you get souls. You can spend these to level up by chatting with a nice lady in the Firelink Shrine, which serves as your hub or home base. You can get there anytime by touching a bonfire. These act as a warp point between areas, and also as a checkpoint. Every level allows you to allocate 1 point to a stat, meaning you can customise your character as you like. After all, why would a mage need to swing an axe so big it would make a Final Fantasy character sag? My favourite tactic was told to me by a friend. I threw all my points into the stats that allow me to wear heavy armour and block. Endurance, stamina, strength. So that I had heavy armour on that would have left me moving like a tortoise. Instead, I could run around as if I was wearing a pretty princess tissue tutu with matching tiara and pearls, stabbing the enemy from behind, and then giggle as they beat themselves tired on my shell. Wait a minute. I still died a lot. In this game, you can have the best armor ever and still get creamed because you got a bit cocky and didn't block or dodge an attack because I can get one more swing in before. Oh dear, is that tentacle for me? Or failed to notice that an enemy was hiding in an alcove because I was charging ahead. Still, next time I went in slow, peeking behind my shield, and smacked the cheeky git with a new weapon skill system. Special powers unique to each weapon. In revenge. Stab and hide, that was my plan. And if they stabbed you first, well, stab them harder when you come back. Mind you, I was still killed a ridiculous amount of times because someone would sneak up behind me while staring off at the pretty water effects, or wondering why had someone set up all these chairs pointing towards a dead dragon's rear, as if they were prepping for some strange balloon-knot theatre. What can I say? I'm a sucker for a pretty background. If there is a story to Dark Souls, it's more of a you get back what you put in. There's a basic story that is more accessible than the stories of the previous games. The fire that was hinted at in Dark Souls 1 and 2 finally getting its turn in the spotlight and being explained. It has loose ties to the first game, some areas coming back in some kind of weird artistic cameo, but it stands out by itself. You can play it without having to play the last 2, or 3 if you count Demon Souls, or 4 if you also count Bloodborne. However, it's light. If you want the full story, then you can go looking for NPCs and chatting to them, and books or letters that will give you the full picture. Or you can make do with a very basic overarching quest for the whole game. Or, if you really want to know more, you can read the tooltips and flavour text on High Lord Cheese Doodle's underpants to find out that he wasn't a fan of the Beatles, and that's why bowl cuts are illegal in his city. You play as some random course, flambéed back to life to find the missing Lords of Cinder, and, after giving them a good spanking for leaving the naughty stall before they were allowed to, bringing them home in time for tea. You meet a few people along the way who help or hinder you in equal measure, but most people you meet are either batshit and armed with something pointy, or slowly turning into foliage. All set to a beautiful and haunting score, giving you the feeling that shite has well and truly hit the fan, that there's nothing out there. It's all oppressive and nasty. Even the environment will probably bite you if you look at them too long. But damn it, it sounds pretty. All in all, it's a worthy final entry to the Soul series, and I'm hoping that, being on a new console, more people will pick it up out of curiosity, enjoy it, and perhaps try the previous games too. Goodness knows the community for it could use some new blood. But I think my overall point is thus. It's a damn pretty game. It's fun to play and rewards people who stick with it. People who are willing to die a few hundred times and find the way to play the game that they find fun. Be it armed with a bow, a knife, a cleaver. All are equal in this game. Ignore the naysayers and those that will try to convince you that it's not for you, or if you die on this bit you shouldn't be playing. Under the most toxic veneer this game has managed to accrue on its online presence, it's actually really fun, with 100 different ways to play it. Take up arms, restore the flame-grilled lords, and have it your way.